Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. As many of you are well aware of at this point, there has been a magnitude 7.3 earthquake that ruptured in Alaska yesterday. This is July 16th. It occurred at 20:37 p.m. Universal Time. So on the east coast of the United States, that would be 4:37 p.m. This was a big earthquake, something that actually we had been forecasting on the channel, not precisely, but in terms of there being a high magnitude earthquake somewhere globally, we were expecting that. And actually we've been expecting that for a few days, and we had this magnitude 6.7 that struck in the Banda Sea. That was the first earthquake to really break the trend, increase earthquake activity globally. And we've been forecasting this because of the space weather. So this one struck after I put out an earthquake watch, and then we had a second high-speed stream hit us. Solar wind velocity went up again, and effectively it looked like there could be a second show, and well, we had this magnitude 7.3, even bigger, about the equivalent of 100 atomic bombs of energy. There was a tsunami warning that was issued immediately afterwards, but it turns out that there wasn't a tsunami. It was fairly shallow, about 20 miles down. I mean, it could be a lot shallower, but fairly shallow. You typically need a high magnitude earthquake. You also need it to be shallow, and you need it to be of a certain type, effectively, like where you have uplift under the ocean to create a tsunami. You need that wave to form. If you can't just have it be strike slip like this. So that was a very significant energetic event. Now, what many people are not aware of is that there was a massive magnetic anomaly that occurred exactly with that earthquake. So not only did these seismic waves propagate out across the entire globe, we also saw this magnetic pulse at the same time, and then the Earth went into a G1 geomagnetic storm. So this is just really basically showing the interconnectedness between the sun and our heliosphere, the Earth, and also the energetic events that occur here, like these high magnitude earthquakes. Thankfully, it doesn't seem there was really all that much damage or destruction or loss of life. I mean, I haven't seen an actual report, but there's very few people that live here. As you can tell, beautiful Alaska, the Aleutian Islands, there are some little, I guess you can call them settlements nearby, but not so close to 7.3 that they got a massive, basically shake. But the entire Earth shook. So we have a lot to talk about in this video, because if you zoom out, this is where things get really interesting. You zoom out and you look at the globe from a certain angle, and let's set it up here, okay? You zoom out, and I'm going to turn myself off for this, okay? We see the location, that magnitude 7.3. We see the location, the magnitude 6.7. They are connected together by the Ring of Fire fault system. This plate boundary with the Pacific plate, we see there the subduction zone going to Japan. And we see this other one there. You can actually connect it two ways to Japan, depending on which fault system you want to travel along. Now here's the deal. This sort of energy from earthquakes preferentially travels along faults. And also, one of the things that contributes to the stress load on a fault is the energy that it has been loaded with. So when you have a high magnitude, we've talked about this many times on the channel. If you have a high magnitude earthquake and there's a fault nearby that's already at a critical stress threshold, but it hasn't ruptured, that seismic wave passing through, that displacement of the actual solid Earth can cause that fault to rupture and also then release its energy. It's like a domino effect. And so we know that seismic energy preferentially travels along faults because that is where they actually rupture. And so on the 15th, we had this 6.7. The earthquake energy went like this, and yeah, it spread out all over, but it also preferentially traveled along these fault systems past Japan. Oh, and by the way, there's already this ongoing earthquake swarm here. It's been going on for nearly a month now, probably 2,000 plus earthquakes at this point. And the highest magnitudes is like magnitude 6, but a whole bunch of magnitude 5s, 4s, 3s. You know, this is a very significant earthquake swarm. And then just about a day later, like 36 hours later or so, we get this 7.3 to pop off, and that's even stronger, significantly stronger than 6.7, and that energy also moving along the faults. And this isn't just happening at any single time. This is also, to add some context, there is a prophecy out there by not just one but multiple individuals, but the most notable being Ryo Tatsuki. She wrote about her dreams, her prophetic dreams, in a manga she released like years and years ago. And Japan is on the fiery line according to that in 2025, specifically July 2025. She saw this volcano seismic event and then this creation of new land, this tsunami that swept over Japan. And so now, not only have we had this earthquake swarm going in just south of Japan now for all of July going into June, and now we have these two earthquakes on both sides, we also have a very powerful new moon coming up with aspects that hit specific points in the Japanese chart that are very important, the natal chart for Japan, because you can create an astrological chart for a country. And so this is looking really, really significant for this new moon. Now, that's not to say that anything's going to happen, but Ryo Tatsuki has been correct before. She was accurate with the March 11th, 2011 magnitude 9.1 earthquake that struck Japan. She saw that in a dream before it happened. And she was right with other things. But most importantly, she was right with that one, because that's the biggest earthquake that we've had in a long time. And that's 2011. 2004, we had that 9.0 near Sumatra. And then going back to, I think the last magnitude 9 before that was actually Alaska, 1964. Pretty sure that's the last magnitude 9 before that, but maybe I'm missing one. But these magnitude 9s are not common, and to get it exactly to the day for 2011 Japan is wild. And so in her dream, she talked about how there were two dragons converging, and at like Japan, there's some symbology of two dragons. So we're trying to like figure out what that is. Like, is that something, some geologic feature? The two dragons could be these two earthquakes. One dragon, two dragon, their energy converging right on Japan. So a lot of interesting stuff, but let's first examine this magnitude 7.3 earthquake for Alaska, talk about this energy shock wave that traveled around the globe, the magnetic anomaly that was registered. This is crazy. So let's check it out. We have, it should be this one here. Yes. Here we have our earthquake energy spreading out from the magnitude 7.3 in Alaska. And this is our expanded view. So we have a view of the entire Arctic, as well as North America, even going down into South America. Things start to get really kind of spread out weirdly near the edges. But we also see Europe here, all of Siberia, even going into Asia. And so this is a fantastic map here showing the spread of the seismic energy. If I reset this for you, let's go back. Okay, earthquake rupture. We see it immediately start to go through Alaska like this, all right? So the energy is broadcasting out. And red is motion up, blue is motion down. Then it hits California. California is not too far away in the grand scheme. We see these waves go through. We also see some other waves like the P waves go through the East Coast and also Europe there, and even check out over there. But then we see the main waves all of a sudden hit the East Coast of the United States, and then we'll see the main surface waves go through Europe like that. You'll notice they didn't attenuate that much. These are still strong, really, really strong up-down motions. So this seismic wave propagated out across the entire globe. Once you get up to that like high magnitude 6, 7 zone, it can do that. Like the entire Earth shook from that magnitude 7.3. So as it relates to the energy traveling along the faults, it definitely went through Japan. It undoubtedly reached Japan and loaded energy into that area. And a lot of it would have preferentially gone along this large subduction fault, you could say, you know, the plate boundary, the biggest faults that you can have effectively. But there's been some other weird things as well. We had this magnitude 5.8 in Greenland, which is not really close to any like major fault system, but it is close to Gokul Ridge, and also this Gokul Caldera, and also this ridge there. A very unique geologic setting. And also we, just like around the same time, we had a new spectacular rift eruption in Iceland. So here's kind of like what's happened the past 48 hours, is that we've had this magnitude 5.8, pretty bizarre and unusual. A lot of magnetic anomalies registered before that magnitude 5.8. We'll give them a look. Then also this new rift eruption started in Iceland just nearby. And then if we just zoom over a little bit, the 7.3 in Alaska. And this is where a lot of the energy from space flows in. It flows into the planet in the northern hemisphere, specifically in that Arctic Circle. And also, of course, down here in the southern hemisphere in the Antarctic Circle, because that's where the other magnetic pole is. But because we are pretty close to summer solstice at this point, the northern hemisphere is still tilted more towards the sun than the southern hemisphere. It's tilted away from it. So we're getting nearly continuous sunlight here in the Arctic at this moment in time, though that is decreasing day by day. So there's a constant influx of energy coming in from the solar wind and also from the sun, hitting this area more, charging it up more, and we're seeing these energetic events unfold with Iceland, with Greenland, and also with, if I can get this to kind of look nice there, with Alaska. So really spectacular stuff. Let's look at this magnetic anomaly, because this is insane. I've never seen anything like this before. And thank you for your patience in terms of waiting for me to report, because I was traveling yesterday. You want to talk about someone that's in sync with the Earth? Actually, let me do a side note here first. I think it's okay every now and then to toot your horn just a tad. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Let's look at my channel so I can show you the receipts of my forecasting. And I don't even have to go into the video, because I'm pretty good outlining this stuff in my thumbnails and my titles. But if we go down to my live streams, you can see right here, it's happening. Impact has begun. This was the coronal hole high-speed stream. Earthquake space weather with fast solar wind impact and rapid fire solar flares. So earthquake space weather, first three words in my title. And then guess what happened? The next day, magnitude 6.7 earthquake struck the Banda Sea, right? Earth is waking up, and I would say if Earth is waking up, then a 7.3 is more awake than a 6.7. If we go to my videos tab, we see my last video there. Earthquake watch continues. So I talked about how we had this second high-speed stream impact, and that very likely we could get more high magnitude earthquakes to follow. So you can watch the videos if you want. If you've been watching for a long time, we've been basically forecasting global seismic activity quite accurately. In terms of location, that is difficult. In terms of exact magnitude, that is difficult. But in terms of just looking at the overall rhythmic trends up and down in global seismic energy release, we have been doing very accurate forecasting on this channel now for a long time, because we examine space weather, solar activity, and more. And not just from a surface, but we go in depth on the data. I teach you how to do it yourself. So if you're new here, hello and welcome. I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geophysicist, space weatherman, and more. Just a curious human trying to understand what's happening on this planet, what to be prepared for, and just the majesty of it all. So if you like the sound of learning about all these things, earthquakes, volcanoes, Earth geophysical energy, solar activity, space weather, planetary resonances, cosmic forces, health and wellness, spirituality, then please subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you here. We have an awesome community here of open-minded and compassionate individuals. So I just wanted to quickly share that, and the bigger reason why I wanted to share that is because yesterday I was flying from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so that's why I did not have a video out basically the moment of that magnitude 7.3, because I was in the air. And in fact, again, that earthquake in Alaska occurred at 4:37 p.m. EDT, so East Coast time, 4:37 p.m. East Coast time. I was moving out of the gate on the plane, and I texted my friend Catherine. I said, at 4:21 p.m., we're heading towards like takeoff. So effectively, I was on a plane that took off the exact moment that that magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck. So coincidence? Up to you. But am I in resonance with the earth and really like got it down pat? Yeah, it seems so. I mean, I was even there when the earth was shaking. Everyone else on the globe had that seismic energy hit them. I was already up and off the ground. Like, why would you want to be on the ground when you got a big earthquake? It's better to get up in the air. And in fact, when we were flying from Detroit to California, we hit turbulence on the way. And so it's very possible that some of that turbulence may have been induced from that earthquake, because that was a big earthquake with this massive magnetic pulse. Here we see that magnetic pulse. So we got really lucky, you could say, with this earthquake. And let me show you why. I mean, this is the pulse right there, but I'm going to get back to this. I just want to show you first and foremost the map. So here we have the map. This is a global network of magnetic observatories called Intermagnet. Some of them are run by universities, other by different groups, but there are, as you can see, a lot of these magnetic field observatories, which is fantastic because we can utilize this data to understand what's happening with the Earth and not fall victim to false claims, fake news, whatever. We can check the data out ourselves. So you'll notice that they have an observatory here, the Schumagen Observatory, and they operate a few different things. It's pretty cool. We see this location right here on one of these islands, but if we just zoom out, just keep in mind these islands right there, okay? Just visually imprint that into your mind. I'm now going to go to the USGS map, and let's zoom up to Alaska here. And look, here we have our same islands. So that magnitude 7.3 earthquake occurred literally on, like right underneath this magnetic field observatory that's run by the United States Geologic Survey. So we had this earthquake and all the other earthquakes that occurred afterwards. There's a variety of magnitude 5s, 5.2, 5.4, 5.7, 5.2, 5.3, that's 4.5. So there's been a whole big release of energy, though again, most of the energy coming from that 7.3, but the location is immediately next to that magnetic field observatory. I'll go back to the map one time. There it is, and then I can even cycle between them like that, right? So if I was to shift this over a bit, you can really see, right? Boom, boom. Okay, so that is awesome. So I looked that up immediately because I was like, I think there's a magnetic field observatory there. Well, we went and looked at the data, and here is the magnetic field data for Schumagen going back to the 11th of July, and we're going to punch in on this anomaly. But here we see our normal diurnal variations. So you get these, it's like almost like a heartbeat pulse with Earth's magnetic field. What happens is sunlight hits the ionosphere, charges it up, and Earth is constantly rotating into view of the sun. So every single day you get this increase and decrease in the magnetic field because of these ionospheric currents. So it's regular rhythmic pulsing. And we don't see anything super anomalous or odd in this data until this spike there. So that is exactly at 20:37 p.m. Universal Time. Let's punch in on that. So we can go to the 16th, and we'll just set this for 2 days so we can see the recent data as well. And here is our magnetic pulse that was registered. And maybe I'll punch in a little bit more if I just set it to 1 day. But look, here's our time. There's 20, and here is 22. And so 21 is like right about there. So that's exactly 2037. So what are the characteristics of this magnetic pulse? Well, we see our total field strength here. Maybe going over to this side will be a little easier for you. Let me set this up. Yeah, so here's our total magnetic field strength measured at Shumagen. So right near the epicenter of this. And the strength was hovering around 51,900, let's say. It's kind of in between 51,850, 51,900 nanotesla, which is some of the stronger field strengths. Well, the lowest value on this chart is 51,700. It nearly went down to that. So we nearly dropped 200 nanotesla in the total magnetic field at the moment of impact for that earthquake. And then we see for our Z component that the pulse was fairly narrow in its range. So this is 47,900. This is 48,040 at the top. So fairly narrow range, about 150 nanotesla for that. But check out our Y component and our X component. I don't know what the heck this is, whether they need to recalibrate it or something, but we're seeing a huge magnetic shift occur after that magnitude 7.3, and there hasn't been any indication that this is like erroneous, that they need to update it. Because we see here our Y component strength was around 3,000, and then our X component strength was around 19,500 nanotesla. And then after that earthquake, right, the moment that earthquake ruptured, look at how we go from about 3,000 nanotesla up to around 10,000 nanotesla. So this immediate 7,000 nanotesla increase in the Y component of the magnetic field. And I think there's something wrong with this, because it doesn't. There's nothing in the literature for there being like a 6,000 nanotesla shift in Earth's magnetic field, the total field, after something like that. But it is bizarre. This is very bizarre, and I just kind of want to report on this just as what we're seeing and not layer in any interpretation. So massive increase that has not been like corrected for or anything, and then this X component had a significant drop, going from about 19,500 nanotesla down to about 17,000 nanotesla. So 2,500 nanotesla drop, and again, there hasn't been a shift. Now, for everything to match up and for the total field strength to stay the same, which we see here, we see that that total field strength didn't really deviate at all. These two would need to equal each other, and that's not the case. This is going from 3,000 to 10,000, and this is dropping 2,500. So that's not equivalent. So this is indicating that this is very likely some sort of inability for the equipment or the software to bring everything back to the correct values. Maybe they need to recalibrate the magnetometer. I don't know. But in terms of it registering and catching the magnetic pulse created from that earthquake, it did, and that is insane. This is a crazy, crazy, crazy magnetic anomaly. And it also occurred right before we had our solar wind turn negative. I can show you that. And then we immediately afterwards had a G1 geomagnetic storm. So here we have our real-time solar wind, and this is set for the past 3 days. And so we're tracking the characteristics of the solar wind out 1% of the distance from the Earth to the Sun. So it gives us a heads up. And up top, we have our interplanetary magnetic field. The black line is total strength, the red line is the southward component. If this southward component, the vertical component of that magnetic field, it's just an arbitrary measurement, okay? You can cut this thing a million ways. But if you take that arbitrary vertical component in relation to kind of like the Earth and everything, and that goes negative in its reading, that means that's a good connection to Earth's magnetic field. Well, here we have a little southward dip in the field, and this started the solar wind field, the interplanetary magnetic field. This started at around 1800 Universal Time yesterday, and it wrapped up right around, oh, look at that. That is the time of our earthquake rupture. Again, it's 2037 UTC for the rupture of that magnitude 7.3. And so this is not a significant southward dip, but we did get a little bit. And then we look and see our KP index went up to a value of 5, indicating that we had a G1 storm. But if you look at this, everything was effectively normal. I mean, it was still, there was, like the solar wind strength is about 600 kilometers per second. That's pretty fast, but It's right at the edge of normal. The solar wind density though, look at the density, very, very low density. That's what we've been talking about on the channel as it relates to pulling these earthquakes out of the earth. They seem to happen, the highest magnitude ones seem to happen when the solar wind density is anomalously low, which would be under 1 particle per cubic centimeter. So we had those conditions. We had the solar wind velocity be fairly high, and we had this slight southward component creating that stronger coupling to the earth, and then that earthquake ruptured. But we like to get a G1 storm just from this. I'm a little skeptical. I mean, at one point we see our values are like 8 and -6, 8 and -7. So, you know, it's like, it's not nothing. And it was about 3 hours going from 1800 to about 2100 there. So it certainly contributed to that G1 storm, but I do think it's interesting, right? This only takes about an hour to reach the earth. So why didn't we start having like that pickup like earlier? This is still only a value of 3. It's the moment that earthquake occurred, that 3 hours immediately afterwards is when we had that G1 storm. So I'm on the plane. I just left the tarmac the moment the earthquake ruptured. I was not on the ground. I was like, see you later, Earth. Like, I'm not here for it. And then I checked my phone halfway through because Delta has free Wi-Fi now. And I wanted to text my friend who was coming to pick me up, the timeline. And then I saw, because people messaged me saying, hey, magnitude 7.3. I checked my phone right then and saw that we were in a G1 storm. So these magnetic fluctuations are connected to that earthquake because we had that magnetic pulse, which is quite wild. Now there's something else that's also pretty wild, and this is our data out of Greenland, because as I mentioned earlier, we've had this magnitude 5.8 in Greenland. And here's Google Earth always acts funny when you're up in the Arctic Circle. It doesn't know how to kind of do the camera angle and everything. But here's this magnitude 5.8 in Greenland. Well, that was, let's get the exact date for that, the exact time. That was at 17:15 UTC on the 15th, okay? 17:15 UTC on the 15th. So here we have our data for the Magnetic Field Observatory near Greenland, and we can again go to our map for intermagnet to see that. And so this is fairly close by. This is Narsarsuaq, or good luck pronouncing that, folks. I wish you the best, and I wish you can tell me how to pronounce that. I would try. But let's just call it NAQ. We have our NAQ observatory there, southern tip of Greenland. And of course, this map makes Greenland look huge, but it doesn't really look like that. We get that better view of Greenland in its real size here on Google Earth, okay? So this observatory is there, then this magnitude 5.8 is there. Well, here we have our data for that location going back to the 11th. And you'll see some fluctuations in the magnetic field, okay? So here we have this drop, and this is a normal diurnal variation there. And then we also seem to get at this location an increase right around this time. But let me just, one more time, it was at 17:15 universal time. So let me write that down. 17:15 universal time on the 15th for the magnitude 5.8 in Greenland. Okay, we're doing this live. We're doing this live. I want to show you how to do this sort of data analysis yourself. Here we see that diurnal variation come again. This is on the 12th of July, but we see that everything remained flat here. Calm, normal conditions, okay? Look at what started to happen here on the 13th. We started to get some really massive magnetic anomalies, okay? So this is when we started to have some geomagnetic storming, but we just noticed that this is like big magnetic swings because our scale here is 500 nanotesla. So each one of these should be about 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so about 500 nanotesla, or 100 for each of these check boxes, which shows us that this is about an 800 nanotesla drop in the X component. Meanwhile, it's a 500 nanotesla increase in the Y component, and the Z component's fluctuating about 500 nanotesla overall. So we had that on the 13th, and then we have the 14th, things cooled off. And then we have the 15th, and here we see the 15th. Again, that's that second high-speed stream impact more magnetic fluctuations, okay? And then at 1755 or 1715, so right about here, we have our earthquake in Greenland. So it did not show a magnetic pulse, but we had these massive magnetic anomalies right before. And so you're going to get stronger magnetic anomalies in the Arctic Circle as a result of the fact that the energy is flowing down the polar field cusp. And what I find really interesting about this is that it shows like the whole Arctic Circle is waking up, which is our big energy flow. So the 7.3 is the most recent one. That's in the Arctic Circle or pretty dang close to it. We can actually turn that on. Here we have our, it's close to the Arctic Circle, it's south of it. It's still very cold up there, of course, way up north, high latitude. But here's our 7.3, and then here's our Arctic Circle line there. And then if we zoom over here, that 5.8 was certainly in the Arctic Circle, very close to the magnetic pole in the northern hemisphere, by the way, like very close to that. And then our rift eruption in Iceland happened right there. I believe I have the video of that right here. Here's that rift eruption in Iceland. This started up yesterday. So I woke up, I had this flight to catch. I only had like a couple hours before I had to get on the plane. I was like, do I make a video on this? Because this is a spectacular rift eruption in Iceland. In fact, it then started to hit some water and maybe the water table and started creating these steam explosions too. So we've been seeing some massive activity out of Iceland now going back a while. Going back to, what is this, December of 2023? Because I was in Iceland just a few months before the eruption started, and I actually went to some of like the geothermal sites, and they were like, we don't know what's happening, but all the hot springs have disappeared. They're gone. Like just last night, they went away, so we're giving you a 50% off ticket. And then we saw, well, and they were saying this is usually a sign of some big volcanic activity coming soon. And well, now we've been having Iceland on and off be very, very active. And so we're just seeing a lot of activity in the Arctic, Iceland, Greenland, Alaska, and right near this North Magnetic Pole, and also right near Gokul supercaldera, which is a remnant of the Gokul supervolcano. This is still active. We don't know how active it is, but it's a very unique supervolcano because it's created as a result of this mid-ocean ridge spreading center, which tapers out. So you have the normal mid-Atlantic ridge that slices through and causes the spreading between, for example, in this location, South America and Africa. This is the mid-ocean ridge. There's active geologic spreading there, creation of new plate. And then if you go up, it intersects at a hotspot with Iceland. So Iceland not only has that spreading center, but it also has a hotspot directly underneath it. And you can even see with its bathymetry data, kind of like some of that material that's just pooled out across time. As sea levels would go down, this would be more of a circular shape, as you can see. But because sea levels are higher, it's created these fjords, really beautiful. Iceland's a wonderful place. And then we see other features in this zone. Jan Mayen, very big volcano right here. It's had some big earthquakes recently. And you see that this spreading center starts to undergo some changes. So it starts to jog a bit. We see the Molloy Deep right here, very odd feature. Like, why is there a big depression there? Kind of an unknown, just off the coast of Svalbard. There's also another weird feature right there that looks very similar to Gokul caldera, like very similar. And you can see it's part of some sort of old spreading center. Because if you look at that again, you see that trench that looks very similar to this one here, right? Very, very similar. And so what happens is the spreading rate decreases the further north you go. So if you're down in, again, let's just go here. That's a pretty fast spreading rate. It's probably about 2 centimeters per year, maybe 2.5 centimeters per year, something like that. As you hit Gokul Ridge, it slows down to about 1 centimeter per year. It's the slowest spreading center on the planet. So the rate of movement is very, very low. And then as you get closer, you see how it tapers off. Now its spreading rate goes down to like 6 millimeters per year. And so you have this disparity between the spreading rate across most of the mid-ocean ridge in the Atlantic, and then also what we're having up in the Arctic Circle. And so what the evidence suggests is that a lot of that energy actually builds up in a magma chamber and then explodes violently with a supervolcano eruption every now and then. This is dated to about 1.1 million years ago. So not saying that's about to explode or anything, but we do have the North Magnetic Pole right in that zone. Okay, so here's our magnetic pole location. And you'll see that that is pretty dang close to the location of that magnitude 5.8 and also very close to Gokul supervolcano because it's right around this zone. We had a sequence of eruptions in 1999 that created three new volcanoes, Odin, Loki, and Thor. They were not big volcanoes, but they then surveyed them with the submersible afterwards, and they found pyroclastic glass like on the slopes of these new volcanoes. So these eruptions were so powerful underwater that they literally created pyroclastic flows under the ocean, which is incredible. And the evidence suggests, like the geologic evidence, drilling and that glass and some other things, suggests that the crust there is incredibly thin. So there are parts where they even speculate, seismic reflection data, all this stuff, there are parts where they even speculate that the mantle is nearly or directly exposed to the ocean itself. That's how thin it is. Because you already have very thin oceanic crust with these spreading centers, and then you have this caldera that scooped out 3,000 cubic kilometers of material. So the ocean mantle, the mantle of the Earth itself is either very close to the surface or directly exposed to the ocean water and therefore undergoing specific chemical alteration in this location. We have the magnetic pole of the northern hemisphere currently moving this way. It's expected to pass over that zone over the next 25 years unless the velocity of it significantly slows down. Right now it's about 40 kilometers per year. And so if it significantly slows down there, then it'll stay there. If it significantly slows down in this zone, it could literally put itself right over Gokul supervolcano, where we have this active energy flow coming in because that's the magnetic pole location. Does that cause the thing to, do something? I don't know, but it's definitely a lot of things are happening right now on the planet. So we have all of that occurring as well. That's like a whole different dimension to this magnitude 7.3 in just really the past few days. But what I'm watching really closely here is this earthquake storm. I've been reporting on that for you. And we have now 2 earthquakes that have occurred equidistant roughly from Japan and connected to Japan by these significant faults. So are these the 2 dragons of Ryo Tatsuki's prediction? Perhaps. That would make sense. I would think that a dragon is a big event. This right there, the 7.3, again, equivalent to about 100 atomic bombs. So that's a massive, massive explosion of energy underground. And that radiates out across the globe. I do have, let's make sure I don't have more stuff here to show you. Before we get into the new moon that we have coming up, which is making a lot of activations to Japan's natal chart, let's look at our Earth evolution portal because this is interesting. We've had plasma filament just blast off from the sun. And this was a pretty big plasma filament. It's actually about 2 days ago now, but I've been getting ready to travel back home and all that, so I did not make a video immediately when it happened. But here we see this plasma filament that I've been tracking blast off from the sun, so we'll see that recycle once more. But give this a watch at the beginning. Here's the 17th. Here's our latest data. But watch it right at the beginning, right here. Here's our plasma filament, huge plasma filament. Boom! Off to the east and north of our Earth direction like this, because we are right effectively like that. So this is not going to impact us, but just a massive, massive, massive plasma filament blasting off from the sun. As you can see, huge canyon of fire quickly reformed because these plasma filaments, they are created as the electric field condenses the plasma into like a rope, And there's also a differentiation of elements as a result of that, and also the magnetic field. So the larger electric field gradient in that zone caused a new condensation. But if we zoom out of this, this is just showing a lot of activity on the sun, right? If we look at our 193 angstrom view, we see this coronal hole that we've been dealing with. This is what, and it was trans-equatorial back here. You know, you guys have been watching the channel, so you know what's up. Look there, we have another trans-equatorial coronal hole. So right around the time of this new moon, where you get increased tidal forces, we're going to have another trans-equatorial coronal hole hit us. Now, is this one as big as this one? No, but it's in that zone that's most important, which is it crossing the equator. And if we watch this, we see that it seems to have grown just over the past 24 hours or so. And that plasma filament eruption could have perhaps destabilized the corona further, because we see active growth on this. Now, this coronal hole we've been tracking, this one we've been tracking for a long time. I want to go through that data before we get into the astrology stuff. So if we go to our SDO portal, I want to walk you through this. We have our current data feeds right here. Here we can actually see that coronal hole we were just looking at better with our 211 angstrom view. Okay, so this gives us a sense really of how deficient the corona is there and the high-speed stream dynamics. This is looking pretty significant. Look at how it's grown. It's looking pretty fat. So that's going to be a significant coronal hole high-speed stream impact once that goes geoeffective, and that's right about in this zone. We see that bit right there. So it's going to take about 7 days to go from where it is right now, lucky number 7 days to go from here to there. Like, the universe speaks to us through synchronicity, folks. We're having one right now. 7 days until it goes from there to there, roughly. But the energetic effects from that could occur even sooner than that. But if we go to our daily movies, okay, so this is how you do this, and you choose a date, we're going to go back to rotation number 7 of the big coronal hole that we just had that hit us. But here is rotation number 7 of the coronal hole that's been on the sun since October. And these are long-lived features. And what the research suggests is that when you have coronal holes and the high-speed streams on the sun for a long time, and the high-speed stream is constantly buffeting the Earth, especially if it's trans-equatorial, the research suggests that that is what loads the Earth with energy that makes these superquakes possible, like a megaquake, magnitude 8, magnitude 8.5 plus. You get these coronal holes on the sun in the geoeffective position with that open magnetic field connecting directly to the Earth, almost basically with every single high magnitude earthquake that we've had since we've been able to track these, which goes back to Skylab in 1973, maybe a little bit before then, but we have images from Skylab 1973 of these coronal holes on the sun that were long-lived. So this is rotation number 7 already. Again, this goes back to October. And this, we were tracking this on the channel about how this is, you know, an earthquake generator, or at least there's a much higher probability of there being high magnitude earthquakes when you have a coronal hole on the sun, especially trans-equatorial, large. We also had some critical planetary geometries at the time. We had Mercury and Venus both perform inferior conjunctions at the same time, which means that you had the sun, and then you had Mercury and Venus, and then the Earth. So there was an alignment between all the inner planets except Mars at that time, coinciding with this coronal hole high-speed stream impact and that open magnetic field. Well, on the 28th of March, right, just as this was geoeffective, and you see it started to go geoeffective around the 26th, but if I go to the 28th, let's go straight to the 28th, you'll see that it was still in this geoeffective zone. And we had the, there we go. You see there, it would just pass through geoeffective, and effectively we'd just been loaded with that new burst of energy from the high-speed stream. That's when we had the magnitude 7.7 earthquake in Burma, which is the strongest earthquake that we've had in 2025, and the strongest that we've had since February 6th of 2023 with the magnitude 7.8 and 7.5 Turkey-Syria earthquakes. So this was rotation number 7, gave us that. Well, we just had that 7.3, again, July 16th, yesterday. So here we can look at our sun in the 211 just for yesterday. And let's pull it up. And so we had this high-speed stream just having recently swept by. But if we actually go back about 2 more days, let's go to the 14th, you should see that coronal hole high-speed stream, the trans-equatorial portion, pretty nicely. And it's loading. Here we go. And so we see that right there. See our 2 trans-equatorial portions on that coronal hole? We just had that sweep by that geo-effective position. So that is now, this coronal hole here has loaded the Earth more than 10 times. If you go to March, that's number 7. So going to April would be number 8, and going to May would be number 9, and then going to June would be number 10. So this was rotation number 11 here of this coronal hole. So we have this new coronal hole that's on the sun currently. Again, we can see that right there. Number 7, this is, I don't know how long this one's been there. It's been there for a while, but in 7 days or so, it's going to be here in that geo-effective position. So we've had this continuous loading effect into the Earth. And yes, we've had the 6.7. Yes, we've had the 7.3. We had the 7.7. We've had some big earthquakes from these coronal holes, but we haven't had any giant earthquakes. And that is the more, based on the research, the more these coronal hole high-speed streams load the Earth, the higher the potential goes for there being a giant earthquake. We haven't had a magnitude 8+ quake here on Earth since August of 2021. It's been nearly 4 years. It's going to be 4 years coming up this August. So normally we get 1 magnitude 8 a year. We haven't had one in 4 years. So we are well overdue for a magnitude 8 minimum earthquake, if not even 8.5 or 9. We're well overdue. We've had these coronal holes, super long-lived features. So now let us look at our chart. So here we have our double chart for Japan. This is very kindly provided by Heather Ensworth. We're going to be doing a podcast soon. It's funny because I was watching her channel, and I watch a lot of, I primarily, people wonder if I watch like other people talking about my field and everything. I'm like, no, I don't really watch anyone else talking geology or geophysics, because I just do my own data collection, my own presentations. But I do watch a lot of people as it relates to like astrological forecasts or financial content, things of this nature. But as it relates to other people talking geology, geophys, almost never, which is not a ding to them. It's just, I just don't have the time. I'm doing my own research. So I was watching a video by Heather, and I was thinking to myself, like, man, we should probably get on a podcast together. I did the podcast with Pam Gregory. I'm going to have her on the channel at some point. It'd be great to get Heather on the channel too, or at least have a conversation or something. And then she happened to email me within like 12 hours after I had that thought process. So we're synced up. And so we've been talking, we're doing a podcast soon. She provided me this chart for the new moon that's coming up really, really soon. This is on the 25th of July. And then also, oh wait, look, that's about 7 days from now, right? It's a quarter moon right now. It's a waning quarter moon, the 3rd quarter moon. So in about 7 days, with that coronal hole high-speed stream, we have this new moon. So it's all about 7 days, folks. It's all about 7 days. That's what it seems. And then she also provided this chart with the natal chart for Japan. That's the inner wheel here. So you can create a chart based off of the birth of a country. We see that was April 3rd, 1457. I'm not exactly sure what date or historic event that was for, but she's done all the research on this. So she sent me that information. And so let's just look at this chart really quick, because this is some really interesting data. And it may or may not be useful or come true, but based off my research, there's a lot to it. And we have some historic planetary resonances active at this moment in time with the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. and then also them being sextile to Uranus and Pluto, which are trine to each other. And so that's like a millennial time scale historic planetary resonance. So let's look at this chart. Okay, so she basically had me zone in on the moon placement for Japan. So there we see the moon. That's at 6 degrees of Leo, and we see Pluto just nearby at 13 degrees. Pluto being related to the underworld, right? So subterranean things. Pluton, that's a geologic formation, deep underground geologic formation. So we have Japan's natal moon at 6 degrees. Look at the new moon that we have coming up on the 25th here. This is set for Japanese time. So this would actually be on the 24th for universal time. So yeah, 7 days precisely if we go by UTC. This is basically conjunct. We have our sun and moon, of course, conjunct with our new moon, but conjunct and activating the Japanese natal chart, going back more than 500 years. Now, what is special about this new moon, not only the fact that it's a Leo moon, we all love Leo moons, but what's special about this new moon is the fact that it's very, very, very tightly configured to this historic planetary resonance that's active right now with Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. So all the outer planets beyond Jupiter are in this kite formation, or this really nice, Mars will make it a kite formation, this really nice formation. So we see here, they're in Leo. If we go over to Aries, here we see Saturn and Neptune, and at 1 degree and 2 degrees. So within a 1 degree orb, they are trining the transpersonal planets right here. Saturn, who's also related to the Earth element, and then also Neptune, which is related to earthquakes and oceans and more. And this prophecy is for some sort of volcano-seismic event and a large tsunami. So you need the Lord of the Oceans to be on board if something like that's going to occur. Not saying this is going to occur, but it's just really crazy, the synchronicities that keep popping up around this. So as someone that is in tune with this, I feel like I should present this information and people want this info. So we have that perfectly trine to the new moon. And then if we look here, we have Uranus conjunct Sedna, Sedna being related to the deep ocean and power. That is their sextile to this new moon. And then if we look over here, where do we have our Pluto? Here we have Pluto. That is in opposition to this new moon because it's at about 2 degrees of Aquarius. So we have this Pluto opposition in this new moon that we have, which is opposite. First, it's the same new moon activation for Japan, but then it's a Pluto opposition for Japan. It takes, like 130 years or something to get a Pluto opposition. It's a very rare transit. Japan's having that right now. It's being activated by this new moon. And another interesting tidbit is the strongest earthquake that we've had, that magnitude 7.8 in Turkey, which also had a 7.5, but the 7.8 and 7.5 Turkey, Syria, that was February 6, 2023, that occurred with a Leo full moon, because that's February. So the sun was in Aquarius. This is all Western tropical astrology, and the moon was in Leo. That was a Leo full moon. So that was the last significant earthquake sequence that we had, Leo full moon. This is a Leo new moon now, because the sun now will be in the sign of Leo on the 25th of July, Japan Standard Time. And there's other things here. So just to read off some of the notes that she wrote. She's wondering, she said, look at the chart for the new moon, July 24th, in relationship with the chart of Japan. It is quite mind-blowing. All the transiting outer planets, Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, are an aspect to the moon in the chart of Japan. The transiting nodes are aligned with Japan's ascendant and descendant, so we can look that up. So we have our transiting nodes here. This is the south node in Virgo, and the north node is going to be there in Pisces. And we know that's aligned right here with our ascendant and descendant for Japan, because we have that alignment set for the chart. So yeah, spot on with that. And the transiting Kuiper Belt object Varuna, which relates to oceans and cosmic balance, is in Leo and is conjunct the Moon-Pluto conjunction in Japan's chart and more. So I'm not sure she has that object shown in this chart. She gave me another one which has so many objects it was going to be too difficult for me to present. But quite powerful energies on that date that may indicate a major crisis in Japan. You may be tracking this, but in case you haven't seen it, I just want to let you know. So yeah, really incredible astrological configuration coming up for Japan with this new moon, with all these trans-personal planets, which are some of the ones that trigger really big foundational shifts. Mercury, Venus, Mars are more personal and these smaller kind of rhythms and variations in life. But the big boys, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they really trigger really foundational shifts and changes on the Earth, solar system, sun, consciousness. So something seems to be coming because everything's lining up. Just to quickly summarize, we have a very strong activation of Japan's natal birth chart, or this natal planetary resonances configuration by this new moon in Leo. The last big earthquake, the 7.8 in 2023, February 6th, was a Leo full moon. Then we've had these two earthquakes, the 7.3 in Alaska here. 7.3 in Alaska there radiates energy down the plate boundaries to Japan, and on the other side, equidistant roughly, was at 6.7, which radiated up preferentially along those fault lines. We have this earthquake swarm that's occurring in Japan already, in between Japan and the Philippines, which is the location that Ryo Tatsuki has been saying there may be some sort of volcano seismic event that generates a large tsunami and a new landform. As a result, we had that massive magnetic pulse from that 7.3 earthquake in Alaska, and it even contributed to a G1 geomagnetic storm that followed afterwards, showing just a tremendous amount of energy volatility on the planet, and also showing the connection between the sun, space weather, and Earth as it relates to these events. We have that coronal hole high-speed stream that will be connecting. We can see that again here with our data. This one there is going to be in that geoeffective position in about 7 days, and that is when we have this new moon. So no guarantees on anything, and I would just say in general that this earthquake watch is still in effect. Where is there going to be will there be another high magnitude earthquake in the immediate, let's say, till the end of July? By the end of July, will there be another magnitude 6.5 earthquake? I don't know. Where is it going to be? I don't know. Will there be multiple of them? Like all those factors, the depth, I don't know, because that is a very difficult thing to predict. But, and you know, I don't want to manifest something particularly. But if we track all this, there is a lot converging at this moment in time, just bringing you that energy forecast. And a lot of people on the channel, they watch another channel that goes by the name Dutch Sense, and he's given a couple shout outs on my channel and seems to be a nice guy. And his method of forecasting earthquakes, which I've looked into quite a while ago, but his method of forecasting earthquakes, and I'm not an expert, is that when you have, let's say, 2 earthquakes, this is like the most simple example, which is pretty brilliant for what we have here. When you have 2 earthquakes like this, you often want to look in the middle of the 2 to see where there's going to be some maybe future upwelling of this global standing wave that he talks about. So there's this energy deeper in the earth that's traveling along, and when it spikes up, it creates these earthquakes. And so one of his primary methods is, okay, you get 1, you get 2, well, let's look in between the 2 for something to happen. And there's some basis in science for that, because we have, again, the energy is preferentially going to move along faults and these plate boundaries and stuff. So we have now also that factor in play where Japan has been loaded with the 2 strongest earthquakes since May 2nd, which was the 7.4 Drake Passage earthquake, which is all the way down here. So this is where the 7.4 in the Drake Passage occurred, right in this zone. This is Drake's Passage. That was the strongest earthquake that we've had since the 7.7 in Myanmar. Yeah, there are multiple ways to skin a cat, you could say, and all eyes are on Japan. All eyes are on Japan, but this 7.3 was a massive earthquake, and I just happened to be literally wheels lifted up and in the air on the airplane right as that occurred, because the earthquake was at 4:37 p.m. Eastern time, and I messaged my friend Catherine that, hey, we're pulling out of the gate at 4:21 p.m. and it takes about 10 minutes or so to go from taxiing to liftoff. So I literally was jetting off the moment that earthquake occurred. And just to share a couple other interesting earthquake stories, when I was a kid in the year 2000, there was a magnitude 5 earthquake in Napa, and I left to go see my dad up north the day before that earthquake. So I left, and all of a sudden, boom, magnitude 5. That shook everyone and freaked out a lot of people out. And then I also had left for the East Coast a day before the magnitude 6 hit Napa. Same situation. I'm gone, and then my dad wakes me up the next morning or 2 mornings later. Like, it was within like 48 hours because he got up early, was watching the news. Boom, magnitude 6 in Napa. So, there's all of us have special gifts and abilities, and I definitely am doing my best to be in resonance with the earth, the sun, the cosmos, so I can just take in that information and relay that to you as accurately as possible. And I also then, of course, ground my presentations and my research in scientific disciplines as well. So by looking at the scientific data and the research, and then also going with what spirit is telling me and intuition, I'm hoping to be as accurate as possible in understanding what's happening with the earth, where she's going, the sun, the solar system, and more. So if you like the sound of that, then please subscribe to the channel. I've been your host, Stefan Burns, and a reminder that the new website, earthevolution.com, is active, and the store there is alive, and so we have all the herbal tea products in stock. And one of the reasons I went back home recently to the East Coast was to get the business in the hands, like the mixing, the packing, the shipping, to get my father on board. And so we have now a lot more capability to basically fulfill these orders, because I'm no longer having to do the videos and literally everything else. And so if you place an order on the website for any of the products like the Vitality or the Electricity, Tranquility, these are the 3 OGT blends, they will ship out to you ASAP. And this is the highest quality, all organic herbal teas. Most of it's sourced from a supplier in the United States who uses biodynamic methods. Also from a supplier in Hawaii, same thing, biodynamic methods. And really intelligently formulated and really high quality. So there's no dusting of the ingredient. For example, let's say Tranquility. One of the main ingredients here is dandelion root. The other one in equal percentage is chamomile. Both really excellent for your gut and just for general health and vitality. Some people will put dandelion root across the front and then they'll just pixie dust it in as the last ingredient. We don't do nonsense like that. We're truthful, honest people. So really, really, really high quality, all organic herbal tea blends, 4 ounces per bag. Those are available on the website at earthevolution.com/store. And I'd highly recommend you go check those out. New products coming out soon, but for right now, we do have all the herbal tea blends in stock, including spirituality. And so if you want to help develop your own connection to the earth, the cosmos, and just your spirit and everything more, then definitely check out the Spirituality herbal tea blend. And I would also recommend you maybe pick up a couple Lemurian quartz crystals, which are super optical clarity, because that combination is really good for just kind of awakening the spiritual body, you could say. So that is all available. Thank you all so much. Make sure to smash that like button to help the channel grow. Thank you for your patience with waiting for me to come online to report on this. because I was traveling and last night I just needed to get sleep. I was going to do a live stream, but it was late. It was like 4 a.m. for me, East Coast time. I was like, I need to sleep first, but I will be back with more. I saw a UFO last night. So at the park outside at night, saw some really weird stuff. Saw a bright blue meteor as well. I'll talk about that in a future video. Hope to see you around. Wishing all of you well. Please take care of yourselves and have a great one.